Hey, welcome back, movie fans, this time, again. These are the underdogs, which I think are the most underrated movies of this year. The most overlooked and most underappreciated bash when they didn't deserve that type of deal. You know the deal. And it's just going to be a top 10 this time. No honorable mentions on this one. So, here we go. Number 10, Tomorrowland. Okay, obviously, I reviewed this one and I said that it was not great, that it was decent, but let's look at the most underrated part of it. It has nice visuals, and it has a great concept. That's where I'll credit it and say it's underrated. And it's not really boring, but it seems more like a business propaganda really than an actual film. And like I said, it's all about getting there. And without spoiling too much, yeah, it may leave a lot of audiences and people anticipating something superb and spectacular empty. So that's why it may be, overlooked this year, in my opinion, for the most part. But then again, that's probably the reason why it was not so great. So, for the upsides of it, that's why I'd say it's underrated. Nice visuals, great concept, and tying into, the relevant things that are going on in today's world, like greed and global warming and so forth. That's why I give it a nod and say that it's at least worth one watch. So, and that's why it's this low on the list. Number 9, The Visit. Okay, I really thought this movie was going to suck. After all, M. Night Shyamalan's last couple of misfires were just really awful. I mean, he just went from bad to worse to really god-awful. And The Last Airbender I didn't even bother with, but After Earth was an abysmal pile of boring piece of garbage film. I couldn't believe how badly he dumbed down Will Smith. This one was a huge improvement. I mean, it wasn't Sixth Sense good, but it was a lot better. I mean, it showed signs of him getting back on his feet. First of all, I'd say it's not great because it's a found footage movie, and it seems like Shyamalan was playing it a little bit too safe, I think. That's probably my only biggest complaint. So, yeah, you may complain it has a lot of slow-moving scenes, a lot of build-up, but the scares and the acting was very believable, so that's why it's an improvement over the last couple of films, and that's why the ideas were cool, and he tries to work to a twist, which works on some cases, and that's why I consider it an improvement. So, M. Night Shyamalan improved, but played it a little too safe with this one. Check it out. Number 8, Southpaw. Okay, I don't know why this one was severely overlooked, and I have a real big thing for boxing movies, even though I don't really watch the sport much on TV, but this one is no exception, and again, I don't know why it was severely overlooked. I mean, we can all agree it's not Rocky, epic, or memorable, even though there's also Creed out this year. And it's obviously not going to be a franchise, but I thought it was a really convincing story, and Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams also both did great jobs with their performances. And it's, that typical what comes up must come down scenario. He's trying to rebuild after pretty much losing everything, his wife and his daughter to child services. It was really good, and that's why it's underrated in my opinion. Packs a good punch for a good time. Number 7, No Escape. Alright, yeah, I was a little iffy seeing that Owen Wilson was being the lead cast member in an action movie where he got to protect his family against all odds from a bunch of rioters when they're trying to escape from Thailand, obviously, pretty much the whole situation was their fault. Spoiler alert there on most of these choices. But, yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that this was banned in, I think, most parts of Asia, because I already knew this was going to get controversy, but not to get too carried away. I thought it held up pretty good. Him and Lake Bell, and of course Pierce Brosnan, of course, was really badass in this movie. You can argue a lot of it was really far-fetched. I mean, throwing kids off, jumping from one rooftop to another. I mean, nobody can really do that in real life. But it was a pretty well entertaining, off-the-edge-your-seat thriller. And that's why I consider it underrated, obviously. Even though, like I said, it's really far-fetched and as well as controversial in some parts. and it didn't go over 2 hours. It was the right length, and it was just straight up entertainment. That's all. Not Oscar worthy, but just entertainment. So worth at least one watch. Number 6, San Andreas. Okay, I really thought this one was gonna suck horribly, and you can argue it did on some circumstances. I mean, I knew a lot of the effects were going to be CG, and I knew there was going to be a lot of over-the-top moments, and of course The Rock was going to be the big hero and everything like that, showing off the big muscles and abs and everything like that. So, yeah, I mean, it was laughable at some parts, but for the most part, I actually found it not as terrible as I thought. Paul Giamatti was really good. The Rock was really amusing. I mean, he's always entertaining and as funny as ever to watch. But the story itself was actually not as terrible as I thought, and, well, that's why it's on this list. But, once again, CG effects, not as easy to ignore as you think, but I wouldn't actually consider it as bad as 2012, which I thought it was going to be another one of those kind of movies. So, yeah, very shallow on story, but entertainment. Just dumb entertainment. Number 5, Insidious Chapter 3. Okay, obviously I reviewed this one and I considered it a pretty good prequel to the first two. Yeah, it's actually a prequel, and I thought it did a pretty decent job developing, well, the two nerd characters and, of course, our main hero, who the expert on the whole further thing. And I know, we're tired of seeing girls get possessed and terrorized by demons and monsters and stuff, and obviously with the first two movies it was a boy this time, and this time around they reverted back, and you could argue it does have some holes here and there, and it didn't exactly 100% show us what we wanted us to know of, prequel-wise, with developing our familiar characters that we were going to see later on in this series. So, but it does the job, and that's why it's underrated. Number 4, Divergent series Insurgent. Okay, I didn't review this one even though I did anticipate it, and I sort of enjoyed the first one. It was underrated for what it was, obviously, if you saw last year's underrated list. Even though the first one was really slow and long at some parts, this one cut the bullshit and got right to it. Okay, maybe the beginning was a little slow, but to me, it's like the catching fire of book-based sequels. It improved and, cut 20 minutes off compared to the last one, which is good, because, yeah, it's got a lot of action in it. It's really well done, and it, like I said, it cuts the bullshit and it gets right to what it should. And even though, obviously, there's 2 more movies coming, and looks like it has a good future for this series, so I'm not giving up faith, especially after watching this one, so keep it coming. Number 3, Minions. Alright. As you know, I am a fan of the first 2 movies. I love them. They only got better as they went along. And obviously there's a 3rd movie coming out too as well, I believe in 2017, but not to get too carried away. This one, I thought, when I heard the title Minions, I thought it was going to be like, what? Is this just going to be the Minions doing their typical gibberish and, brainless things for an hour and a half? Not that I don't like the Minions, but a whole movie about them doing all that stuff. I was like, really? This is what they succumb to? But then I saw more trailers, and then I was like, okay, now it looks like a more believable plot. It's actually a prequel to the first one. You got the female supervillain, voiced by Sandra Bullock, and I was like, yeah, this actually looks pretty good, and I didn't understand any of the mixed reactions. Okay, it somehow lacks some of the heart of the first 2 movies, you can argue, but I think it was still pretty amusing. I mean, yeah, no, you got a lot of your typical Minion moments, cutesy stuff, and the animation was still pretty spot on as well. So, if you love the Minions, go check it out then. May not be as good as the first 2, but it's at least worth one watch. Number 2, Max. Okay, this is the one about the dog, Max, obviously, not to be confused with Mad Max. Yeah, again, I do not understand any of the negative reactions this movie got. And I don't know what people are really expecting. It's about a war dog that comes home after being stressed and traumatized by, the war zones over in the Middle East. And I don't know how accurate it is to the, actual true story source material. but I'm sure they fabricated things like they always do in Hollywood. And I thought it was a pretty well done story. It was very, occasionally tear-jerking and compelling, and the end of it especially really kept me off the edge of my seat. I don't understand at all what people were expecting and why they were bashing this movie to death. I thought it had nice heart to it as well, and not much to say there. Go check it out. If you love Lassie and all those other dog movies, it's right up there with them, at least in my opinion, and at least in a lot of other people's opinions. So, a good canine movie with a good heart. And number 1, Heart of the Sea. Okay, this is obviously directed by legendary director Ron Howard, who did great films like Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and so forth. And of course he did The Grinch, which I thought was pretty good. Maybe not as good as the original, but not to get too carried away. This film I knew was going to be a lot of CG, and I think it was postponed, release date wise a few times. Because I remember seeing the trailer as early as like November of last year. And yeah, I don't know what people expected. You could argue the whole Moby Dick thing was not 100% well done. And again, a lot of the effects were CG. And yeah, it was slow at some parts. But once it got good, with the special effects and everything, it was good. And it was pretty gripping for the most part. Chris Hemsworth, as always, is a blast to watch. And he's really convincing as an actor. I mean, he's really good. And a few other actors you've noticed, and they were portrayed pretty well. I don't know how true to the source material. Once again, I'm sure they Hollywoodized it to death, aside from the CG and over-the-top acting. But I thought it was at least worth one ride on the ocean. Again, you can argue that it's slow, but you can argue that it's not exactly Ron Howard's greatest film. But it's definitely worth one trip on the sea at least once. A whale of a movie. Okay, maybe not that great, but that's why it's number 1 most underrated movie on my list. So, till next time, keep watching.